Hi there, welcome back to Reading Week. If you joined the live session yesterday, you'll know we looked at the reading skills you need to develop for success in OET and in the workplace. The recording of that session is now available on both our Facebook and YouTube channels at Official OET. And I also shared the link to the sample reading test that we'll be diving into for the next 3 sessions, starting today with reading part A. If you tried the sample test yesterday before today's session, let me know now in the chat how you think you did. How confident do you feel that you got at least 32 answers correct, which is where we recommend you should be aiming before feeling ready to book your test. 1 being least confident, 5 being most confident. And while we wait for those answers to come through, we'll also add the sample test link to chat again now. So if you're joining for the first time this week, you can download it and start taking a look. We'll be going through the answers for part A in today's session, but you can try parts B and C by yourself later, ready for us to go through the answers for them in the next 2 sessions this week. My colleague Alex is joining from behind the scenes. She's going to be on hand to answer questions that you might have, so feel free to get involved with these sessions. And I can see a few mixed results coming through on chats. We've got some 1s, quite a few 1s, 2s and 3s, not many 5s. I was expecting actually that I might see a few more confident candidates joining today, but it's absolutely fine. I'm very pleased that you're being honest with your confidence levels, and hopefully by the end of this week, you'll be able to increase that confidence score. So as a reminder, today we're going to be looking at part A. Tomorrow we'll review part B, and on Thursday we'll look at part C. And on Friday, we'll talk about what to do next to build on the tips and skills you've learned during the week. And it'll be great if you can join me for all the remaining sessions or catch up on the videos when we've released them after the live sessions. So during today's session, while we're looking at reading part A, questions and answers, I'll be giving you some statistics and showing you examples of real candidate answers. These were kindly submitted by candidates just like you, but at the end of last month. And you can see from the word cloud, which is coming up on the screen, all the countries that were represented in the responses, which was great to see. Thank you if you were one of those candidates, and I hope you're excited to learn how you did with your answers. Oh, and I nearly forgot. For the next 3 days, we do have a prize giveaway, thanks to our friends at Cambridge University Press and Assessment, who have given us copies of their new book, OET Trainer, to give away each day. We'll be holding the first giveaway at the end of today's session, and all the questions we'll be asking for you to win the chance to win one of those books will be about reading part A. So make sure you pay attention to be in with a chance of winning those books later in today's session. First of all, let's go through some basic reminders about what's involved in reading part A and some recommended approaches you should take in case this is the first time you're hearing about this part of the test. For those of you who know reading part A a bit better, you can help me out here. I'm displaying the facts for reading part A, but in code. And I want to know if you can break my code. Perhaps if I tell you what the first answer is. So 15M stands for 15 minutes. What about the other parts of the code? Let me know in chat. Can you solve the rest of my code? So what does 20Q stand for? 1T, 4T, 2 POP, and 3 QT. The last 2 are a little bit more difficult, but see if you can tell me any of those answers coming through. Great, I can see some of you know the answer to the second part of the code. That's really good. Let's pop that answer up onto the screen now. So yes, 20Q stands for 20 questions. That's great. What about 1T and 4T? So we've got a few people saying 1 text, a few people saying 4 text. Which is correct? Remember, this is for reading part A. No one's quite got the next one right. Let me show you the answer for that. So there's one topic. All of the questions in reading part A are on one topic. And then those of you who were putting in the answers have got the next one correct, which is 4 texts. So there's one topic, but 4 texts on that topic. Now, what about these last two? 2POP. This one is pretty difficult. Be impressed if anyone gets this one correct. The last one, you might have a bit more idea about what the last one is correct. 3QT. There's not very many words that start with a Q, so perhaps that will give you a clue as to that word, and then you can work out what the T stands for. Fantastic. Diana's got that one correct. She has got the answer, 3 question types. And Sidra, fantastic. You got the other one correct. So 2 pieces of paper. Congrats to Sidra for getting that one correct. And 3 question types. Congrats to Diana for getting that one right. So what do I mean by 2 pieces of paper? The 4 texts will only take up the space from 2 pieces of paper. So they're always a certain length. And will never take up more space than 2 pieces of paper. And yes, absolutely 3 question types. So the recommended strategy to follow for answering part A is to start by reading that topic. And in this sample test that we're looking at today, it's cellulitis. And then the 4 text headings to understand the different aspect of the topic each of those texts covers. They'll cover it in a slightly different way. At the same time as checking each text heading, also look for other text features like bullet points, subheadings, table row headings or column headings. And these features help you find the information more quickly once you start answering the questions. Once you've done those 3 things, go straight to question 1. Now, of those candidates who I mentioned submitted their answers in advance, 42% of them got all 8 of the matching questions correct, which is a really good outcome. These questions require the shortest of answers, just A, B, C, or D, which make all of the short answer and sentence completion questions easier to find the answers for when you get onto those after the matching ones. So let's look at question 1 together. Treatment for cellulitis caused by less common bacteria. Now, to be time efficient with the questions in part A, you want to focus only on the words that are going to help you find the answer. As the topic of the texts, cellulitis is likely to be repeated in several questions, and so it becomes a word we can ignore. And we can also ignore little words like prepositions and articles. So in this case, words like for and by. So in this question, the key words are treatment, less common bacteria. 20% of candidates who answered this question did so incorrectly, and most of them were choosing text A as their answer. Let's have a quick look at text A on the screen now. And can you let me know in chat, can you see why this answer is wrong? What is wrong about text A being the answer for treatment less common bacteria? Does anyone know? I can see coming through on chat, everyone's identified that treatment is the key word. Why is A the wrong answer? Fantastic, Rashika. There is no treatment mentioned. Eddie Lynn also says it's the definition, not the treatment. So does Grace. Really good. Okay, so there's nothing about treatment in this text. If we look at the titles of the 4 text headings, we've said it's not A. Which text do you think you would look at to find the correct answer? Look at the 4 texts on the screen now. Tell me which one do you think you would look at to check, is that the correct answer? We're thinking about treatment, less common bacteria. Very good. I can see lots of suggestions of C coming in. I would also start with C because drug therapy is a good synonym for treatment. And I don't know about you, but I also remembered from that quick check of the 4 texts that I mentioned was a good thing to do at the start of the reading test. I remembered noticing that atypical cellulitis is also part of text C. So that is a good match for the question. C is the answer. 88% of candidates who submitted in advance answered questions 2 and 3 correctly, and the answers for these questions are D and B. But let's look at question 4 together, which a few more candidates got wrong. 28% of the candidates submitting in advance got wrong. And the question here is symptoms that may be experienced before the infection is visible. So most of the content words look useful here, but most important are symptoms before infection visible. Now, none of the texts really stand out as being an obvious match for these keywords, but I would discount text C, which I know is just including treatment details. We've just had a look at that text. I also wouldn't start with D because management really comes later in the diagnosis phase than symptoms. So I don't know about you, but I would start scanning texts A and B, looking for matches for the word symptoms and the word visible. So I'm going to show you text A and B on the screen now. So first of all, here's A. And have a look through A. Can you spot any words to do with symptoms or visible? And now I'm going to show you B on the screen. So we're trying to look at both texts. This is what you sometimes have to do in reading part A. Have a quick look at 2 texts. You're not sure which one contains the answer. So you look at both. Can you see any words in text B that are matching symptoms or visible? Type them into chat if you can find any answers for symptoms in either text A or text B. Can see some of you submitting the answer, but we're getting sort of equal numbers of A and B coming through at the moment. All right, Jaspreet is suggesting text A in the first paragraph. Let's take a look. All right, yes, I agree with you, Jaspreet. So fever and nausea in text A are examples of invisible symptoms, and the phrase precede skin changes is a good match for the rest of that question. But if you chose B, you were in good company, as this was the most popular incorrect answer from the candidates who submitted their answers in advance. But there wasn't anything in B that is a really good match for symptoms, and specifically not for that part of the question, which is before the infection is visible. All right, questions 5 to 7 caused candidates very few problems from those that were submitting in advance. In fact, only one candidate from all of those that submitted in advance made any mistakes with these 3 questions, which is a great result. And the answers for these 3 questions were D, C, and D. Now, the final matching question, question 8, also again had quite a few wrong answers, 28%. And the question is, who should be consulted regarding pharmacotherapy for cellulitis? Now, you tell me for this one, which are the key words in this question? So let me know in chat from that question, who should be consulted regarding pharmacotherapy for cellulitis? Which are the key words that you would be focusing on when trying to find which is the correct answer? Good, Amma, I'm seeing saying pharmacotherapy. Consulted, Ibrahim, yes, that's another one. Kalmini, yes, you've got that important first word, who. And when we have the word who, what does it tell us about the answer? What kind of answer are we going to be looking for when a key question word is who? A person. Yes, great. Thanks, Grace, coming through. Someone from Anna Maria. Absolutely. Good. So let's have a look at text C and see if we can find that answer. I'm going to show it you in a little bit more detail. Can you find in text C a word or a phrase that represents a who? Who should be consulted for pharmacotherapy? Have a look at the text on the screen now. Can you see evidence to support your answer for text C being correct? That's right. Thanks, Ramakant. So, medical microbiology service. It's in the middle of the text or at the bottom in this enlarged portion that I'm showing you now. It's not an individual person, but a service is a collective group of people. Now, of course, you don't need the answer for the matching questions. All you need to be able to do is provide the text letter. But as you'll see in many of the strategies that we cover this week, having evidence for your answer is a comfortable position to be in. The most common incorrect answer for this question was D. And I think this is because of the phrase, if in doubt, seek specialist advice. But advice is not a who, and the word specialist is an adjective relating to that advice. It doesn't mean specialist a person, it's specialist advice, which is an adjective for the kind of advice being given. Advice is not a who. And also the advice is about blistering, which doesn't fit under pharmacotherapy. All right, so from those first matching sets of questions, if you've completed part A in advance of today's session, how many did you get correct? And for those of you who are just joining, you can now see the first 8 answers on the screen. Let me know how many out of 8 you got correct if you had already had a go at this sample test yourself. That's great. Some high scores coming through, some 7s and some 8s coming through. 6 from Sunita, but well done. That's still a good score. 6 from Grace as well. Samina saying 8, Ramakant saying 8, Isabel saying 7. Fantastic. So some good scores, but there's always room for improvement. Unless you're getting all 8 of those correct, if you made a mistake somewhere, we'll talk towards the end of the session about how you can avoid such mistakes in the future. All right, let's move on now to the next section of questions, which in this sample test are short answer questions. And it's worth focusing on the instructions for this section. There wasn't any evidence of candidates writing in full sentences, but a common problem and a reason for losing marks was not answering the explicit question that was being asked or repeating words from the question in the answer. So when I'm talking to candidates about this particular problem, I like to imagine 2 healthcare professionals at work. One of them is at a computer or desk, and the other is standing near the door on the way to see the patient. And this professional standing near the door calls to the other one behind the desk something quick that they want the other healthcare professional to check for them. So, for example, which leg has Mr. X broken? And the healthcare professional at the desk checks the file and calls back, left. He or she doesn't say Mr. X has broken his left leg or even the left leg, just left. And this answers their colleague's question perfectly. So when you're answering reading part A short answer questions, I want you to be like the healthcare professional at the desk. Only say the words or write the words that are needed to answer the question. And the approach for these questions is the same as what we were just doing with the matching questions. Isolate the key words, find the text and the evidence, but this time write down the word or short phrase instead of just the text letter. So let's look at question 9. Which antibiotic formulation is not suitable for treatment of cellulitis? And here are the key words that I think are important from this question. Which antibiotic formulation not suitable? So let me know in chat, where would you start looking for this answer? Sorry, I've given you a suggestion there. Which text, A, B, C, or D, do you think is the best place to start looking for the answer? Okay, so a few of you are suggesting text C. Let's have a look. Let's put that up on the screen. If you find the answer in text C, type it into chat where you think that answer might be coming from. Remember, the question is, which antibiotic formulation suitable? Or not suitable, actually, sorry, in this case, which antibiotic formulation not suitable? Can anyone find anything for the answer in this text? All right, I'm going to say the answer is no. Some of you are also suggesting that the answer is in a different text. The answer is not in text C. There are some references to penicillin, but this is not on its own a formulation of antibiotic. A formulation means the way that the antibiotic is delivered to the patient. So I can see a few of you suggesting text D. Let's go and have a look at text D. This is also to do with management of the patient. If you can find the answer in text D, type it into the chat now. That's good. And yes, some of you had already been supplying the answer a little bit earlier while I was looking for which text contained the answer. And the good news is, from what I can see of the answers coming through, almost all of you have avoided the problem that some of those candidates submitting in advance made. So the answer is topical, just the word topical. Now, the reason that 60% of candidates got this answer incorrect was they also added the word antibiotics. Antibiotic is in the question, so we don't need to repeat it in the answer. The answer is simply topical. All right, question 10 was answered correctly by 66% of candidates submitting their answers in advance, and the answer was morbid obesity. Those candidates that got it wrong had, for this question, made slips in their spelling. And I'm going to show you a few examples of that on the screen now. So they had written morbidity obesity, morbid obesity, morbid obesity, or morbid obese. Or perhaps they had only written obesity or morbid as single words, which are incomplete answers. So all of those options that I'm showing you on the screen now would be considered incorrect and would score 0. Remember, it's fine to write your answers in capital letters, small letters, to write the first letter as a capital for your answer, but it must be spelt correctly. And this is true whether you take the test on paper or on computer. Your answers must be copied and spelt correctly for you to get that point correct. So I'm going to look at questions 11, 13, and 14 together because they're very similar, and candidates all made very similar mistakes with their answers for these questions. So here are the 3 questions on the screen. And the commonalities between these 3 questions are they are all about single doses of medication. 2 are about doses for a class 4 patient, and the other is for one of the least serious categories, i.e. class 1. From what we know of the text so far, it's easy to know that all of these answers are going to be found in part C, and it should be quick to find because the name of the medication and the class of the patient is given in the question. However, on average, 36% of candidates who submitted their answers in advance were getting at least one of these answers wrong. So here's text C on the screen with the questions. I don't want you to tell me the answers at the moment. Instead, I want you to tell me what error do you think those 36% of candidates were making? What were they doing that made these answers wrong? I'll tell you what the correct answers are after that. But first of all, I want us to think about, what do you think candidates were doing that made these questions wrong? This was a common problem, and we see it a lot actually in OET. Diana was mentioning the drug name. Shanza saying they were adding the times that the medication had to be provided. Yes, absolutely. Both of those is correct of why they were getting those answers wrong. So they were adding how frequently the medication needed to be given, the method, so IV or PO was being added. Those are all incorrect answers and would score the candidate 0 for writing those answers. The correct answers were 2.4 milligram, 500 milligram, and 1.2 grams. That was all that was needed to answer those questions, which, remember, about a single dose. All right, so that leaves us with this section of questions, question 12. What may be impaired if anti-inflammatories are given to patients who take ACE inhibitors? So let me know, what do you think are the key words in this question? Oh, in fact, I've shown you on the screen. My finger was too quick. Sorry about that. But here you are on the screen. What impaired anti-inflammatories ACE inhibitors? So there's a few keywords here. But the good news is, whenever you see an acronym in the question, looking at text D, ACE is going to be quite easy to find. So when you've got an acronym, it makes it quite easy to find the answer. So just see now, there's 8 points on the screen. How quickly can you find ACE? Which point, 1 to 8, is it in the text? So there's 8 points. Where can you find ACE? Which point? Great. Shanmugo is saying in point 2, which is correct. There it is. ACE is up there in point 2. And what is the answer to what impaired? Let's have a look. I could see some of those answers coming through in advance. That's correct. Renal function is the correct answer. Now, 8% of candidates included risks to renal function as part of their answer. Can anyone tell me why that would be wrong? Why would the answer risks to renal function be incorrect? 8% of candidates who submitted that answer in advance got that answer wrong as a result of adding risks to renal function in advance. Why would that be incorrect? Yeah, correct. So Shanza's saying impaired is already mentioned. Majdoline saying they're asking what is impaired, which is the function, not the risks. Yeah, absolutely. Really good to see those answers coming through. So only renal function is something that can be impaired. Risks to something is not an example of an impairment. So very good. Renal function is the correct answer. And again, from those 6 questions, short answer questions, how many did you get correct out of 6? Let me know in chat. All right, we've got a 6 and a 5 and a 4. Okay. 5 out of 6, 5, 5, 6. That's good. So quite high answers. Feel proud if you got 6 of those correct. But if you were getting 4 or 5 correct, again, towards the end of the session, we'll look at what you can do to avoid those mistakes next time around. So the last section of questions in this sample test are sentence completion questions. For these questions, ensuring that the answer fits within the gap grammatically and in terms of meaning is something you need to check carefully before making the final choice for your answer. Your approach, though, is the same as the one we've been using all session. Isolate the key words, find the text and the evidence. In this case, it's a word or short phrase to complete the gap. So let's look at question 15 together. It may be necessary to carry out what of blisters caused by cellulitis. So again, let's start off. Don't put the answer into the chat. Tell me first of all, what are the key words here? What are the key words in this question that you can use to then look in the text to try and find the answer? Which words would you particularly focus on to go and find the answer? Yeah, good. Blisters coming through from Shanza and Feruza. Yeah. Carry out, Ibrahim and Grace. Yes, absolutely. Necessary. Yeah, very good. The key words are maybe necessary, carry out, what of blisters. Now, which text would you start looking at to find the answer? So again, here are the 4 texts on the screen. Where do you think you would find the answer to what may be necessary to carry out on blisters? Yep. So we've got a suggestion of text D from a few people, text A also being suggested. Yeah, good. I would go with text D, which is about management of the locally affected area. Those words locally affected to me seems like a good place to start looking when we're talking about blisters. So here's text D on the screen. I want you to scan for that word. Remember, we were practicing this if you were here in the session yesterday. You don't need to start at the beginning of the text or on the left side of the text. Start anywhere you want, having a look for blisters. And then if you can find the answer for this question, type it into chat. And for candidates that submitted their answers in advance, and what I can see coming through in the answers for those of you live now, 2 answers were being suggested, but of course only one of them is correct. Only 40% of candidates got this question correct of those that submitted in advance. And the answer is aseptic aspiration. Now, a lot of you are suggesting proactive management, but the reason proactive management is incorrect is because this is not a maybe. The verb in front of it, conduct, which is in the imperative form, means this has to happen. Only aseptic aspiration is something, that we have to seek advice for if in doubt. Proactive management should always be conducted. Question 16 was answered correctly by 94% of candidates who submitted their answers in advance, so that's a great result. And the correct answer there is naproxen. But let's look at question 17. This caused a few more difficulties. So the question is, a patient may have been exposed to infection by swimming in surface water or using. Now, which part of that question contains the most important information to help you find the answer? Let me know in the chat, which is the really important word that's going to help you find the answer to this question. Anju suggesting exposed to infection. Shanza saying surface water and using. MM is saying using. IB is saying using. Yes, I would agree with you. or using is really important in this question because it limits us to what word are possible after it. And the same way that swimming obviously limits which following types or places of water where swimming is possible. So thinking about which text we might find the answer, I'm going to suggest text A, which covers the etiology, the causes, and text A is on the screen now. So scan the text to locate the part of the text where causes are listed. And if you can find the answer, type it into chat now. That's great. I can see quite a few of correct answers coming through. The correct answer is hot tubs. And hopefully you noticed use of in front of hot tubs in this text, which links obviously directly with using. I can see a few of the incorrect answers coming through that also came through from those who submitted in advance. And this may have been because you were confused by the text mentioning nothing about swimming. Swimming is actually covered by exposure to fresh water and exposure to salt water. Standing water also is any type of water body, fresh or salt water. So 28% got this question wrong. Some because they chose, for example, salt water, but others got this wrong because they misspelt tubes. It should be tubs. So some said tubes, some forgot the S on the end of tubs. All of those answer options would be incorrect. So do look back at your own answers and make sure you avoided those mistakes. Question 18 caused very few problems again, with 94% answering correctly. The correct answer is either DVT or deep vein thrombosis. Both were mentioned in text B, so either option was acceptable, as was deep vein thrombosis in brackets DVT, which is how it was actually written in the text. So let's look at question 19. Patients with exacerbating cellulitis, a compromised immune system, and those with what should be hospitalized here. So again, quite a few important keywords. Here are my suggestions for what those keywords are on the screen. So exacerbating cellulitis, compromised immune system, and with. So again, like the other question we've just looked at, with is a really significant word. It helps us identify an answer which will work in combination with it. So what words can come after the word with? We've also, you can notice, got a bit of a list going on here. We've got the use of those commas to separate 3 types of patients that need to be hospitalized: exacerbating cellulitis, compromised immune system, and one other type of patient that needs to be hospitalized. So things like lists can really help us when we're scanning the text to find the answer. I think the answer could be in text B. Have a look at this text, scan it for the word hospital, and see if you can find those other 2 examples, and then enter into the chat what you think is the correct answer. Yeah, that's great. A lot of you are finding the correct answer, but a few are also offering an incorrect answer. So let's look at it together. The correct answer is facial cellulitis. And the reasons for this being correct is we can find immunocompromised ahead of facial cellulitis, and whose cellulitis is rapidly deteriorating after it, which is a good match for the other 2 items in the list. Now, 42% of candidates got this question wrong, and I can see some of you entering your answers into chat now also got this wrong. Class 3 or 4 or rapidly deteriorating are incorrect. And I wonder if you can tell me why those answers are incorrect. Does anyone have any suggestions as to why class 3 or 4 or rapidly deteriorating are incorrect answers? Perhaps if that was you, do you now understand why facial cellulitis is correct, but class 3 or 4 or rapidly deteriorating is incorrect? What is the problem with those answers? Any ideas? Yeah, good. So Priya and Devadev are both saying, there's extra urgency. It says they must be immediately hospitalized if they've got class 3 or 4. So it's not within the same sentence as the other examples in the list. And that extra level of urgency, the immediately hospitalized, isn't part of the question. So that means class 3 or 4 isn't a good match. Rapidly deteriorating doesn't work after with. So we can't say with rapidly deteriorating hospitalized. It doesn't work on its own in that respect. Plus, rapidly deteriorating is a synonym for exacerbating cellulitis. So that makes it an incorrect answer. All right, and the last question, 82% of candidates got question 20 correct, and I can see some of you have been sending through the answers in advance. The answer is chronic lymphedema. From those who got it wrong, mostly it was because they had omitted the word chronic from their answer, which again makes it incomplete and means that isn't going to score you the point. So do be careful about making sure your answers are accurate for the question. So those are the answers from the sentence completion questions. Another 6 questions. How many of those did you get correct? Let me know. Out of 6, how many did you get correct? It's good. Diana's saying 5 out of 6. Shanmuga is saying 4. Ibrahim 5. Sunita 5. Sravani 4. Frank, well done. You got 6 correct. Syphilis is saying 4. So there's certainly a number of you who made some mistakes in those questions, and we'll be getting on to some strategies for how to avoid that very shortly. But before we do that, I thought it would be interesting to find out how many you got correct out of 20 in total. I'm going to tell you what the average was for all of the candidates who submitted in advance in a second, but out of 20, if you had already tried the test in advance, how many did you get correct? All right, so we've got Diana on 18, Anna on 16, Faruza on 17, I think that was. Sorry, it went a bit fast. Ismail on 16, Jaspreet 18, Syphilis 18. Good scores. And actually, most of you that I can see submitting in advance got above the average from those that submitted in advance. So the average from all of the candidates who submitted their answers in advance was 15 out of 20. Only one candidate from all of those that submitted in advance got all 20 correct. Another one candidate got 19 correct, and a handful got 18 or 17 correct, which is like most of you. So unless you're getting 20 correct, there's always room for improvement, and every extra point correct will help your reading score. So let's talk about what you should do once you have your score. First of all, obviously, congratulate yourself for those that you got correct. But after you've done that, focus more on those answers that you got wrong and why. Here are the top pieces of advice from looking at all of the candidates' answers that submitted in advance to help you avoid making unnecessary mistakes in the future. So the first one is to make sure you answer all of the questions. Sounds easy, but 4 candidates from all of those that submitted early hadn't answered at least one question. Some had not answered more than one question. And you automatically score a 0 if there is no answer to any question, but you don't lose any marks if you enter an incorrect answer. So it's much better to put an answer. You won't lose anything for putting an incorrect answer, but you will score 0 if you leave an answer blank. Be careful with your handwriting, okay? So while your paper will be assessed very carefully and your handwriting patterns analysed, the responsibility of providing legible responses lies with you. So if your E's and O's, for example, look very similar, it will be impossible to assess the accuracy of your spelling, which will cost you points. Some of the submitted answers in advance look like they'd been written in a rush, which is understandable. This is a 15-minute part of the test, but your efforts are wasted if the assessors cannot read your answer. So as a way of checking whether your answer is clear enough, it should be clear enough that it can be read without knowing what the answer is. And you can use capitals or lowercase letters as you prefer. There's no mandatory way that you need to put in your answers, but you do need to make sure that your answers are clear to the assessor. My next piece of advice is to copy the answer exactly from the text. And we saw a few examples where candidates hadn't done that. They hadn't copied the spelling correctly. And again, that means you will score 0. In this test, some candidates were losing marks because G for gram, the G was written in the text, but the candidates were writing out the word gram or adding an M after it. This would be marked wrong. You have to copy what is given to you in the text. That is the instruction. And the same is true of punctuation. Be careful with your spelling when copying the answers, but also be careful with your punctuation. The examples you can see on the screen now look like commas, not full stops. And again, that's not copying exactly from the text. Piece of advice 4 is make sure that you have evidence for your answer. So you should be able to connect the answer to the whole of the question in all of the sections. If you lost points in the matching set of questions, for example, this could be something for you to focus on particularly. But equally for all sections, if you made mistakes by choosing the incorrect word, check again. Now you know what the answers are. Does the answer you're selecting fit grammatically with the words next to it and with the question? And last piece of advice is don't include repeated words from the question, but do make sure you answer the question. So remember, think back to my example of the nurses talking to each other, the nurse at the desk. Only provide the information that is needed to answer the question, and make sure you're answering the question, such as those single dose questions, which aren't including details that would void the answer that you've given. So we're nearly at the end of today's session, but remember we've got one more important thing to do before we finish, and that is the prize giveaway. So our friends at Cambridge University Press and Assessment have offered us 2 copies of their brand new OET trainer books to give away in the next 3 days. So there's 2 copies to give away today, tomorrow, and on Thursday. Which means if you join all 3 sessions, you have 3 opportunities to get your hands on one of the copies. The OET trainers contain 6 complete sample tests, and these include step-by-step training to use those tests, hints and tips for test-taking technique, downloadable answer keys with explanations of why the answers are right or wrong, like I've been doing in today's session, audios, and further exercises. So it's a really good prize. And the winners will be able to receive either the nursing or the medicine version and receive it in the mail from us. The books retail at around 60 Australian dollars. So this is a really good prize. The only small print that I have to point out is we are only able to post to unrestricted countries for shipping. So if one of our winners ends up being from a restricted shipping country, we will offer a prize of equal value to you. But that's enough talk from me. It's time for the quiz. So to enter, I'm going to show you the instructions of how you enter on the screen now. You need to go to kahoot.it, and Alex is going to post a link to the quiz link into the chat now. And then in a second, we'll put up on screen the Kahoot, and you will type in the pin that is on the screen. So you go to kahoot.it, there will be a pin that comes up on the screen. You can see the link Alex has posted now. You can click on that. It will take you directly to the quiz. Type in the pin, add your nickname, the name that you want to use for the game, and get ready to play. And important to remember, if you are the winner, number 1 or number 2 winner, at the end, you need to take a screenshot on your device which shows your name as the winner, and be ready to send it to us at the end of today's session. So let's play. Let's go to Kahoot. I can see lots of names coming through, which is great. I'll give you a few more seconds to get there. Enter the pin that you can see on the screen now, and add your name to be part of the options to play. All right, we've got 80 people online already. We've got 162 in today's session, so just give a little bit longer for some more people to join. I'm sure you'll be wanting this great opportunity to win one of these books. 6 sample tests are included in the books. We've got a nursing version, we've got a medicine version. It's a great prize for any of you that want to win. All right, 10 more seconds. We've got over 100 joining us in the quiz now, and we will get started. 5 more seconds. Last one's coming in. All right, Alex, let's get going. All right, so the questions come up on the screen, and you need to choose which is the correct option from those you see on the screen. Here's question 1. How many texts are included in reading part A? 2, 3, 4, or 5? Click on the color if you're on your mobile phone that you think has the correct answer. You've got 5 seconds left. Enter in Kahoot if you want to be part of the winning team. Yes. Question 4, or option text 4. Sorry, I've lost the will to speak. 4 is the correct answer. 72 of you got that one correct. Let's see who's on the top of the leaderboard at the end of that. We've got Beth up at the top, but it could all change. So well done, Beth, for answering that question correctly. Let's go to question 2. Which of these is not a type of question in reading part A? So remember, not a type of question in reading part A. Sentence completion, multiple choice, short answer, or matching. Which of those is not a type of question for reading part A? 5 seconds. Good. Most of you were getting that correct. Multiple choice is not a type of question we use in reading part A. Let's see the leaderboard now. Oh, it's changed. We've got Gracie now in the top. So Gracie, well done. You've risen to the top. Let's go to question 3. What was the topic for this sample test? Make sure you read the spelling carefully. So the topic was cellulitis. Which of those 4 options is the correct spelling though? Very good. And almost everybody got that correct. So that's very reassuring. Let's see the leaderboard. Oh, it's changed again at the top. Ruby is now in the top spots. Fantastic. All right, we've got 2 more questions. Let's go to question 4. And this one is worth double points. Which of these is the recommended approach for answering reading part A questions? All right, have a look at the 4 options. Which one is the one I've been recommending during the session for answering reading part A questions? 5 seconds. Good. Not so many clear answers there, but those of you who answered isolate the keywords, find the text and the evidence were correct. That was the correct answer. All right, that will have shaken up the leaderboard, I'm sure. Who is currently top? Well done, GK. GK and Mardi are currently in the position to win one of those books, but we've got one more question. Let's see if that makes a difference. Let's go to last question 5. Good luck. How many questions should you answer in reading part A? 42, 24, 20, or 16? 10 seconds left. How many questions should you answer in reading part A? Well done. Yes, you should answer all of those 20 questions correct, of course, or at least put in an answer for the 20 questions. So we're going to show the winners. Remember, if you are number 1 or number 2, please take a screenshot as we reveal the winners. Let's see who our winners are. So sadly, missing out on a prize was LUV, who came in 3rd, but a winner, we've got GK, who's 2nd place, and the winner is Mardi. Well done. So congratulations, Mardi. GK, take a screenshot of your scoring positions, and then we will ask you, I'm going to flick back to my slides now. If you are Mardi or GK, please send a screenshot of your winnings to oeteducation@oet.com.au, and we'll be in touch to share your prize. Now, don't worry if you were not one of those that won today. Remember, we've got 2 more opportunities to win tomorrow and on Thursday. So we've got 4 more books, 2 tomorrow, 2 on Thursday, for you to have a go. So do make sure you join us then. And speaking about tomorrow, I hope you're going to be able to join me when we're going to look at reading part B. If you want to have a go at the sample test B and C questions before then, we're popping the link into the comments again now. So if you haven't yet had a go at this sample test, download the link, which is coming up into the chat now. Have a go at those questions. And again, we'll go through the live answers in tomorrow's session. It'll be at the same time. And if you're unable to join us live, the recording will be available once the session finishes. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining in, your enthusiasm in answering all of those questions. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks then. Bye for now.